Hi guys, what is up? Welcome back to another video. Today you join me in the 2022 Cupra Ateca, the big brother of the Cupra Leon and the car that gives you a lot of performance for not too much money in the small SUV segment. So before we get going talking about the car, let's just talk about pricing and where it sits on the market. So the range starts at about £41,000 and that gets you the entry-level VZ1 model, which actually comes with the majority of the kit that you would ever need on one of these. Stuff like the 19-inch alloys, keyless entry, dynamic chassis control, which doesn't usually come standard on its counterparts, such as like the Golf R, the T-Roc R and stuff like that. A top view camera, whilst it's not the best quality in the world, it's a really nice feature to have on a larger car. Wireless phone charging. The entry-level car even comes with both the virtual cockpit and also the large infotainment screen, which is an upgraded version of the one used on the previous generation cars. You even get bucket seats as standard in a sort of an Alcantara with a carbon effect. Step it up to the VZ2 model, which is about £43,000, and you get the electric tailgate, this petrol blue leather interior, which includes these bucket seats with the copper contrast stitching, which look really cool. But of course, the one I'm driving here today is the top of the ladder, which is the VZ3. Now, it comes with the same engine, same gearbox and so on, but this one comes with some upgraded 19-inch alloys, which are the copper facing ones similar to that you get on the old Leon Cupra R. And also it comes with Brembo brakes on the front, which have these really nice drill discs, which give it a really beefy look and actually really do step up the performance. This one I'm sitting in now does not have the pan roof, which is a just over £1,000 option. I think it probably would really lift the cabin, to be honest, because it is a little bit dark and gloomy in here, and I really love a sunroof on a car, but that is pretty much the only option besides paint that you can have, which I really do like. You can either have, you know, VZ1, VZ2, VZ3 trim. They just include what they include, and that's the end of the story. And I do like that. I like that mentality, rather than having to pick loads of different options. When you go and you view a car, especially if it's a second-hand version, you know exactly what you're getting, whether you go for a VZ1, 2 or 3. So let's talk about the looks of the Ateca. It's had a bit of a refresh around 2021, and I really do like this slightly newer facelifted model. There's a few little extra features in the cabin, but the majority of the work's been done on the outside, especially at the front. I think it looks really, really handsome. It's muscular without looking too bolshy and aggressive. It comes with all LED lights as standard all the way round, which I think really look good, and it's also got the dynamic sweeping indicators like you get on the Audis at the back, and you've got nice large blind spot monitoring lights in the mirrors as well. Overall, I think it looks stunning, especially in this colour. You've got the gloss black bits that you know, really contrast the Nevada white metallic paint, and these copper wheels I think are well worth going for the VZ3 if budget allows. The top spec model with those wheels and those brakes, it really just makes it look another level, and also really adds to the performance look of the car. So for me, good marks on looks. Moving on to the interior, it's very similar to my Mark 3.5 facelift Leon Cupra. It's got the same kind of interior layout, but of course you do have these petrol blue leather bucket seats, which are a bit firm, I must say, but they do provide the support where you need it, and there is loads and loads and loads of adjustment, so I wouldn't worry about that. You've even got the 4-way electric lumbar adjustment. There's no electric adjustment in the passenger side, which is a bit disappointing, but at the same time, if it keeps the cost down, then that's fair enough. The interior pretty much is as you would expect it to be of a Volkswagen Audi Group product. On this VZ3 model, you get an upgraded Super Sports Cupra steering wheel, which I think is stunning, and also the benefit of this is it has the engine start-stop button and the Cupra mode control button on it as well. In terms of your tech, the standard Volkswagen Audi Group virtual cockpit, which has quite a few different functions you can cycle through, and including a map view, which is nice. There is some lag to the animations, but it's just what you come to expect of this system. It's very much the same, apart from the copper detailing that you get on this car. And the main infotainment screen, of course, again, I have experienced some issues with it. Every single car I've got in from Cupra or Seat or even Volkswagen recently, I've had issues with crashing Apple CarPlay. So it crashed a few times on me on a long journey the other day, which hasn't happened to me on other cars, so I know it's not my phone. So that is a little bit disappointing, but at the same time, the animations seem to be getting a little bit more fluid, so I don't know whether that's software updates that they're putting in, just optimizing the GUI a little bit. It can be a little bit fussy and confusing, but thankfully on this particular model, you don't have those horrible touch controls for the sort of the ventilation and the climate control system. It's all inbuilt like the old Mark III Leons were, so it's kind of reusing parts. So yeah, it does look a little bit dated in here. You know, this is the same kind of stuff that they've been using in cars for about a decade now, but it kind of works, and I really like having the physical controls on the steering wheel. That's always a really nice touch. And the paddles are much improved from the previous generation cars. They're still not perfect, but they're much more responsive in terms of the clicking feel. And of course the DSG gearbox responds nicely to those as well. The other thing is you do have a traditional gear lever, unlike the newer stuff which has the toggle switch, which I do think is a bit dated now, but it does give you the opportunity to use the car in sequential mode. But of course, with all Volkswagen Audi stuff, the sequential is the wrong way. It should be inverted. There are a few quality concerns that I do have though at this price point. Nearly a 50 grand car, and there's a lot of these kind of cheap scratchy plastic still in the interior, even above knee level when you're sitting down in here, which is a bit disappointing. I mean, I've just come out of a Kia Sportage, a 2022 model, which was much more plush inside for less money. In the back, there's plenty of space, lots of headroom, and I can sit behind myself in my driving position nicely at 6 foot. And also there's the normal amenities that you'd expect back there. You've got some cup holders, you've got some charging ports and all that kind of thing. You don't get any heated seats, unfortunately, but it is what it is. You've got a ski hatch as well, which is obviously good for storage. In the boot, it is actually a bit cavernous, to be honest. It's a lot bigger than you'd expect when you look at the size and the shape of the car. It does look quite broad at the back, which is nice as well. The only downside to the boot is there's quite a big load lip, and also the seats don't fold completely flat with the floor in its normal position. So you'll find that it's kind of difficult to slide longer objects in, which is a bit of a shame, but it more than makes up for it in space alone, and you can stack bags and bigger objects in there just fine. So overall, the Ateca gets decent marks for practicality. It's definitely not the best in its class in terms of cabin space. There is a kind of a sense that it is a bit of a jacked up lay-on, but I don't really mind that. I mean, it makes it feel quite manoeuvrable, and it makes it feel quite small. The mirrors are kind of the same size as what you get on a smaller car, and the visibility out is really good from what I can see. So overall, it kind of feels a bit like an inflated hatch, and some people will prefer something a little bit bigger and a little bit more bulbous, but I think that a lot of people coming from a smaller car, especially if you're upgrading from something like a Leon or a full Focus or, you know, something of that hatch class, this is kind of a nice step up to give you a little bit of a bigger ride height, also some more practicality in terms of storage inside, and just a bit easier getting in and out. You've got the ISOFIX points in the back for the kids, so the practicality is decent. It's definitely not a Range Rover in here, but it's big enough for most small families. But what you really buy this car for isn't that, it's the drive, it's the performance. Now, the Cupra products of late definitely have improved steering feel, but it is still very much the Volkswagen Audi group electric steering, which does have quite a vagueness to it. And it is very agile, so it does feel like you can dart around in it. It doesn't feel like a big heavy car at all. It's just over 1,600 kilos curb weight, which isn't too bad. But it feels very much like a hatch, just with a slightly higher ride height. And I guess that's kind of what it is really, but you do get that sense when you're driving it. It doesn't feel daunting in any way, shape or form, which is nice. And it actually does corner quite flat. There's some slight understeer sometimes, but it's not too bad. Of course, the four-wheel drive does help out, pull you out of the corners. So you've got that 7-speed DSG gearbox in here mated to the engine, and it is quite a good box, but it does need to really be put in sport mode to get the best out of it. So I've just put it in sport mode now, so we've got some agility. I'm gonna send it around this roundabout. We've got some understeer, we've got some tyre squeal. There we go, and there's the limit already. So it does pull its weight, it's not too bad at all, and the satisfying gear changes, because of that DSG, it really does pull very well. In the standard gearbox mode, it does float around a little bit. It can be a little bit jolty in traffic when it can't decide what to do sometimes, but it's nowhere near as bad as the 7-speed DSG in my car, so whether it's just an age thing or whether the software's been tweaked, I don't know. But it does seem a little bit better in this, and it does provide a nice smooth experience around town. It can be very sluggish though to respond when you put your foot down if you need it, so you really need to stab the throttle quite hard for it to kick down. Otherwise you end up building the boost quite slowly, and if you're trying to get out of a difficult situation or pull away from some lights, sometimes it just doesn't really like it that much. But when you put it in sport mode, it really comes alive. The throttle response changes completely. Of course, if you've got it in sport mode on the DCC as well, it firms the suspension, it sharpens the steering. Straight away you feel the difference when you put it into its sport or Cupra modes. Of course, you've also got some four-wheel drive modes for terrain and snow as well, but the sport modes are what's really going to help you when you're on the tarmac. It really does make everything feel so much tighter. That's the steering, you know, the throttle response is much more instant. The only thing is with the sport mode on the gearbox is, much like in my car, it hangs the gears a bit too much, so it's not really ideal for kind of pottering around in. We're just going to send it all the way around and then come off quite sharply. Yeah, in the Cupra mode, it really feels quite planted. You can feel the weight, but you can feel the suspension firm right up as well, which is nice. Right, let's talk performance then, shall we? I'm going to put the car in sports mode, traction control off, and I'm going to do a launch control. So, foot on the brake, slam the accelerator, and release. Wow. So that's 0 to 60 in 4.8 seconds. Not bad for a big SUV. And it will go on to 155 miles an hour, which of course is electronically limited. Doesn't sound too bad either. I've driven the abbed version of this, which is a tuned variant, which definitely sounds a little bit better. You get more pops and cracks and stuff. I'm sure with an ECU tune, you would probably see some more stuff like that on here. But yeah, you definitely do get some decent noise. You get a few DSG farts every now and then, but I definitely think, being the performance variant, the GPF has really kind of muted the exhaust on the Cupras, and I do definitely think that it could do with a better exhaust to open it up. The good thing is as well, being a four-wheel drive car, it really does just grip and go in most conditions. You can launch it pretty much in any situation and it will just work. Now, that definitely does provide a little bit of numbness. I've always said when driving stuff like the Golf R and the Audi S3, which have basically the same drivetrain as this, the 300 horsepower 2-litre TSI from Volkswagen Audi Group, it's very much the same experience. It's a point and shoot weapon, but you don't really have much in the way of feedback through the wheel. It's not going to be as fun on track as something like a front wheel drive car. It's not going to be as fun to hoon around as a rear wheel drive car, but the beauty of four wheel drive is it will just grip and go. So I've taken it now to some kind of tighter country lanes just to see what it can do. Obviously, this being a bigger car, it's not going to inspire as much confidence as, say, a Leon Cupra, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely doesn't feel its size most of the time, which obviously is a good thing. But yeah, you can still chuck it around. The suspension is relatively firm, but not crazily so. Definitely could benefit from having an exhaust upgrade. But of course, being a dual clutch gearbox, when you take over with the paddles, everything is pretty instant. We're on very hot, dry roads at the moment, so it's quite sticky, but obviously the four-wheel drive system takes over anyway. And you do feel the confidence. There's not much body roll once you've got it in this setting, thanks to that dynamic chassis control. I feel pretty much like I'm just driving my Leon Cupra that's just a little bit higher. It doesn't really feel like an SUV in this setting. Of course, when you put it in comfort mode, it does mellow out a little bit, but I'm quite comfortable hacking some country roads in sport and manual. Definitely could do with a little bit more noise to accompany it, but it's a great compromise if you want to have some fun, but you need to haul the family around. Yeah, I mean, you could do a lot worse at this price point for sure. It's definitely lacking the refinement of some of its rivals when you come to sort of less performance-based stuff, like that Kia Sportage I just got out of. What an incredible car for the money. It was about £8 grand cheaper than this, and the interior was just another league, and so were all the tech and the gadgets on it. And it was quick enough for your day-to-day, you know, but it wasn't a fun car to drive, and that's the difference here. Obviously, this isn't going to beat a six-cylinder. It's not going to, you know, make you smile with the back end out, but at the same time, it's a nice compromise. It's a nice middle ground. I'm still been averaging about 27 mile per gallon on mixed driving, which is about the same as I get in my Leon, give or take a few mpg. Obviously, this is going to be a little bit worse because it's a heavier car. Yeah, it really does grip up. We've got a nice day, we've got a nice bit of road. I've got my mate Steve in the passenger seat for this run, who probably is clenching a little bit at this point. He's just giving me the thumbs up. But I'm having fun in an SUV, and that's the whole point. So top marks for the Cupra when it comes to a decent compromise for a fun family car. Thank you so much to Cupra Media for obviously allowing me the car for the last week. It's been a blast. If you like, check out some of my other SUV reviews. I've got the Ford Kuga that I had a few weeks ago. I've also got the Kia Sportage, which I definitely think was the better choice in terms of your daily driver. But if you want something that's a little bit more fun, then definitely keep this one on your list. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.